The U.S. president now has his sights set on big pharma. Trump wants to see the price of prescription drugs drop as much as 80%. Let's go to Courtney Breen on this, senior analyst in biopharmaceuticals at Bernstein. Thanks for joining us today. So the U.S. does pay significantly more for drugs than other developed nations. I'm wondering if there is any clear reason why.
It's a great question. I think there is a kind of multitude of reasons that have set us up into this point. What you do see around the world is the U.S. tends to get new innovations faster to patients, and you do tend to have much more of a centering of the industry here in the U.S. with investments in R&D, investments in manufacturing, and other factors. So there is a centralization of the industry here, and there is a willingness to pay, or at least historically, there's been a willingness to pay to expedite the pace of innovation and that access to patients. In other countries around the world, there tends to be a willingness to forego some of the latest innovation to be able to negotiate price down. And so over the years, that has translated to discrepancies. And then you layer on healthcare systems looking different and structures looking different and the different middlemen and players in the industry also setting up for further and further accentuation of those gaps between U.S. prices and ex-U.S. prices.
Interesting. Okay, so superficially, it sounds like a valid request, right? Hey, let's get Americans paying less for drugs and things that they need to get them through the day. What do you see being the knockoff of the ask by Donald Trump to dramatically lower prices?
So it's a great question. And I think to kind of your first comment on that as well, I think it is kind of widely accepted that kind of there is a desire to reduce drug prices. This is one of the few areas where there's been bipartisan agreement for decades, and real alignment on the fact that kind of drug prices in the US have been too high. So I don't think there's anything super novel in that. However, the way that the new administration, the Trump administration, is intending to go about achieving this does look very different. There are potential for a variety of knock-on effects. I think what we see with this particular executive order, like many of the actions that this administration has taken so far, is while there's clear intent and kind of details at the highest level shared, those kind of double clicks on what this might actually look like is hard to kind of tease out of the information that's been shared. And so as we think about how much might this change prices in the US over the next 6 months or a year or 2 or 5 years, we can't paint that picture quite yet. But certainly we saw with the stock reactions today and kind of based on our prior expectations, there was a lot more of warmth from the Trump administration towards the pharmaceutical industry than was being anticipated, and perhaps a more stepwise approach, and perhaps there is a serious hurdles to kind of implementation of the most extreme actions that have given investors and the industry perhaps a little bit more comfort.
Can you expand a little bit on how pharma companies are responding? You said they didn't feel it was as heavy-handed as perhaps they thought it was going to be. So what are you hearing or seeing from them today?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. So what we saw in the executive order is while there was certainly focus on drug prices and the intention is to reduce drug prices, there were two groups that aren't the pharmaceutical companies that were pointed to as being kind of the primary demonizers in this space. The first were ex-US countries. Trump even referenced the fact that he's willing to defend pharmaceutical companies and support them in raising prices outside of the US, and particularly with regards to the European Commission. And so kind of there was an allyship indicated there. The second was also the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers, who are kind of seen as the middlemen in the industry. They are a unique function that exists in the US and doesn't exist in other countries around the world. And they do contribute a meaningful proportion to drug spend, kind of according to pharma, that could be up to 25%. 10% of overall drug spend is going to the PBMs. Specifically, Trump identified that group as being a group that they want to cut out entirely and reduce kind of spend that is heading in that direction. That then means that the pharma companies aren't bearing the full brunt of the drug pricing action here, and it's being shared across that value chain. In terms of reactions, I think everyone's in digestion mode. Certainly, kind of, we've seen in this executive order a lot of the language incorporated that aligns with the language of the industry body. So I think that is a positive sign and suggests that the industry has been quite successful in sharing their concerns and elevating clear issues with the Trump administration. But certainly, there's a lot that we will learn over the coming days and weeks as to how these drug companies continue to respond beyond kind of the capital investments they've already been announcing and other kind of inventory stockpiling reactions as related to the tariffs that have already been kind of stressed over the industry to date.
Yeah, so there's another deadline, I guess, of 30 days for them to come up with how they plan to do it. If not, something will be presented, I guess, to them. Courtney Breen is a senior analyst in biopharmaceuticals at Bernstein. Thanks for your time today.